How much momentum is there still left in China's economic recovery story?
Well, we're encouraged. The growth figures for the first quarter just came out, 4.5% ahead of most expectations. Our forecast is that China will grow at 5%, and we think there could be some upside risk to that projection if the Chinese consumer comes back. We have some concerns about still elevated unemployment rates and migrants coming back to the cities, incomes recovering, and consumers gaining confidence. We're already seeing the service sector recover in a very robust way as Chinese citizens go travel internally. We see the contact-intensive sectors like hospitality and transport really picking up. But we haven't seen that as much in manufacturing and other sectors. The property market still is a concern. But the Chinese tourists should help other economies in Asia recover as well.
But as you mentioned, there's still weakness in property, industrial production, perhaps worryingly investments continue to languish. Is there a risk that the revenge consumption factor is flattering the headline number? And is it really reliable if you're looking at longer term, I guess, a more linear look at the demand comeback?
I think we'll have to wait and see a bit. One thing that was encouraging is last week the export numbers for March came out and they were really positive. So 15% year-on-year growth, where most people expected negative growth in March. So that's encouraging. A lot of those exports were going to other economies in the region, ASEAN countries, other emerging markets. So that's encouraging. We know that some of the other economies in Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Philippines, they're growing pretty well this year, and they're also creating some demand.
So to you, is China still the anchor story when it comes to emerging Asia and emerging markets more broadly? Are they better positioned in this instance, this tightening cycle, than perhaps previous ones?
Well, external demand is still an issue, of course, with very slow growth in the U.S. and in Europe. That's a drag on Chinese recovery. So a lot will have to come from the renewed confidence of the Chinese consumer. If they feel there's still a lot of uncertainty in the outlook, they may continue to save and not want to really spend as much. But if they feel that things are really opening up and incomes, employment, everything is responding, then we should see them respond. And that should also support the development in the property market as well.
We're seeing India's population overtaking China's, right? How big of a structural deal is this when it comes to world global demand? I mean, we were talking about China being the consumer of the world, the manufacturer of the world. Does India take its place, and when?
Well, India's projected to grow at a very robust clip, 6.4% this year, 6.7% next year. And it would have been even higher if they hadn't had to deal with some of the inflation issues, which has also slowed down the Indian consumer somewhat. But that's really secondary to the broad recovery from the pandemic that we're seeing. Healthy domestic demand, investment as well, with a kind of growth-oriented government leadership stance, policy stance. So we're optimistic. India is a very young country. It's benefiting from a demographic dividend, whereas China is an aging country. So the aging of the population is a headwind. So over time, we don't expect China to recover to those double-digit growth rates that we were so familiar with earlier. There are a lot of challenges to maintaining productivity growth in China. We've had a productivity growth slowdown there for quite a number of years. Whereas in India, it looks like more upside. So India is contributing about a quarter of the regional's growth this year and into the future, and that share will probably increase over time. But China is such a big part of GDP in Asia that no matter what their growth rate is, as long as it's similar to what we're projecting this year and next, it'll still be really important both to the region and to global growth.